Good morning, students. Welcome to chapel. Um, I wish it was different and that I was face to face, but we're not. So we're going to make just the absolute best of what we have here. Okay, I think we're good. I'm hoping. There's like a little red line over my speaker. I hope that's good. Okay, so our current context of chapel is way more fitting now that we're, all quarantined. Like this whole theme of living in the upside down, right? I mean, you think about it, like how many of you are tired of being on your phone, right? Students are tired of YouTube. You're tired of watching Netflix, right? You're reading. What? For a pleasure. Russo and I are like, what? You guys are doing yard work and chores for your parents. Um, you know, you are, let's see, what else have I heard? Board games, and writing. Some of you are taking up like learning a new instrument, violins and guitars and pianos. Like students are tired of their phones and they're learning hobbies on their own. I mean, you guys are like flipping your generation like upside down. I mean, it is like Twilight Zone. And the most bizarre thing I think is having students admit to missing school. Right? Like it's sweet. I know it has more to do with your friends than it does, your teachers and curriculum. But talk about like how absolutely upside down this is, right? It's kind of ooh, spooky. And it's kind of funny because back in January when Mr. Schatz asked me to teach in chapel in April, I chose from this list Romans 13, which is talking about submitting to government and those in authority over you. Because when we submit to our authority and when we submit to government, we're submitting to the Lord, right? And ladies, one day, if God has marriage for you, you submit to your husband because you're looking at your husband, but you're looking past your husband and you're considering the Lord. You submit to your husband as you do to the Lord. Well, that's what I was going to teach on is on submission, and I'm deviating from that a little bit because of our current context. But I want to talk about um, um, what one thing that I enjoy as a teacher, as especially at this school, we get to hang out with our students and have lots of conversations, is hearing what you're learning about, asking you just in a given day, like, hey, what do you study in other classes? And it is comical whenever you guys kind of throw fits. I won't say names, but you know who you are if you're listening. Throw fits over having to learn the environmental pressure of Egypt, right? And those of you who are like pre-cal, why do I need pre-calculus? And why do I even need to take a fifth math, right? I've had my four. And Stevens, why an APA annotated bibliography? I will never, ever use this again, right? Or I'm a sports person. Why am I being asked to be in drama or a musical, right? I don't want to do that. Whenever you have to um, talk about the Old Testament prophecies that are fulfilled and all 127 scriptures that you have to memorize for that, right? Miss Stevens, I am not Muslim. Why do I need to learn about Islam? And I have no desire to ever study ethics or law. So why am I being roped into those? And poetry, oh, poetry, right? Man, that stuff's hard and so abstract, and obtuse angles and chromium, right? Because that's on the periodic table of elements. And all of the dress code. Mm, dress code. So let's just talk about that for a minute, right? Why do I have to wear a skirt or shorts for boys? They make me cut my hair and I can't pierce my ears and you can't grow a beard, right? And don't speed in the parking lot and don't be on your phone. Those aren't dress code. Those are just other rules that popped into my mind that I know you guys don't really like. Things that you can't wear to prom and homecoming and field trips and football games, and man, like there's a lot of things that I hear from students on what what you have to do and don't do. Hey, you get to wear Crocs and Birkenstocks now. Just don't go sport mode, and you're going to be okay. Do you kind of follow where I'm going a little bit with that? There are things that I know you don't like about your context, and I want you to think about your own context and things that you're asked to do and walk in that you don't agree with, right? Things that you think are beyond you or unnecessary. Especially, it's really hard whenever you look to the right and the left and you see people who don't have to walk in those things, right? That aren't being asked to obey in those ways, or they don't have to take those classes. But I want you to think about our Creator, right? The second worldview question that we ask is, what is the origin of the universe? Well, the origin of the universe is God. God created the world in two ways. He created it for the seen and the unseen. And I want to talk about the unseen because that's where we live in the upside down, right? Is because we live according to the unseen. The world would say, no, you want to be a writer and an author, or you want to be a lawyer. You don't need all these maths, so let's go ahead and bounce you out of these. Or, oh, you're going to be a professional athlete. You don't need any of this school. Let's go ahead and bounce you out of all of these, right? I'm not saying that those are sins. Good grief, it's just a tiny little example, analogy. That's a better word. But as Christians, we live in the upside down where we walk in the things that we're asked to walk in because that's how we honor the Lord, right? That's our number one job in this life, is to honor the Lord in whatever it is we're being asked to do, right? I'm going to read 2 Peter 1, 3 through 10 in just a minute. But I want you to think about your everyday context. And I want you to think about what your quarantine looks like. Because I don't want to waste what our experience is now. I want you to think about your quarantine and what the Lord is asking you to walk in. Maybe it's immense loneliness because you're an only child and your parents are working and you're just home. Maybe all your siblings are home from college and your house is packed, right? And there's not a whole lot to eat because everybody eats it all the time. Maybe there's a financial hardship because the market's gone crazy and there's layoffs and stuff, right? Maybe you're just completely chilling and waiting for this thing to be done, and you're just spending most of your time kind of not thinking or engaging in any of those things. But I want you to think about what the Lord's called you to, the classes He's called you to, the family He's called you to, the people that you're surrounded by, this quarantine, all of it. The Lord's called you to all of it for a very specific purpose. And I can't say what that purpose is, but I can say that the Lord's asking you to practice something in every single one of those scenarios. 2 Peter 1, 3 through 10 says, His divine power has granted to us all things that pertain to life and godliness through the knowledge of Him who called us to His own glory and excellence, by which He has granted to us His precious and very great promises, so that through them you may become partakers of the divine nature, having escaped from the corruption that is in the world because of sinful desire. For this very reason, make every effort to supplement your faith with virtue, and virtue with knowledge, and knowledge with self-control, and self-control with steadfastness, and steadfastness with godliness, and godliness with brotherly affection, and brotherly affection with love. For if these qualities are yours and are increasing, they keep you from being ineffective or unfruitful in the knowledge of our Lord Jesus Christ. For whoever lacks these qualities is so nearsighted that he is blind, having forgotten that he was cleansed from his former sins. Therefore, brothers, be all the more diligent to confirm your calling and election. For if you practice these qualities, you will never fall. So, students, we are called to practice these qualities because you know what? Our Lord practiced these qualities. You think about the fact that He was alive for 30 years before He ever started His ministry. And the Lord didn't need to practice these things in the same way that we needed to practice these things. But he did go through these things and he did submit to people because he knew that we would one day have to submit to those people. And he knew what was in the heart of man. So we have the ability to practice godliness during a time of depression. And we have a time to practice steadfastness during a time of isolation and loneliness, right? Whenever we are on the internet and TV and phones a lot, we have the ability and we have the responsibility to practice self-control because these are the things that the Lord's asking us to walk in. Jesus did this perfectly, right? Because he had to walk in something he didn't want to. He had to walk in the cross. And Jesus did not, this is Easter. Please don't let that be lost on you, right? Jesus had to walk in this death, right? He had to submit to man. He had to be tired and he had to be hungry and he had to be thirsty. He had to endure with people that did not understand what he was saying, that did not believe who he said he was. And then he had to endure the suffering and he had to endure death on the cross. And he did it all perfectly. So whenever we're asked to walk in something like pre-cal or like English 3 or like apologetics or drama or choir or uniform wearing, when we're asked to walk in these things, we're able to do it really, really well. And the more that we practice these things, the more that we're going to be granted these things that pertain to life and godliness. It's something that's cyclical. So I hope that today you're encouraged. I can practice self-control and I can practice godliness. Think about what the Lord would have you practice in whatever season that you're currently in. Seniors, it's awful that this is how your senior year is ending. And I'm sorry for that. But think about what the Lord wants to teach you in this and what the Lord is going to have you practice in this. For everybody else, think of your current context and where you are personally, where you are with your family and with your church body. What is the Lord calling you to practice in? Oh, Stevens, that's just too hard. It's not too hard because the Lord fights for you, right? Because he did it perfectly. If you have any questions or you need specific prayer about anything that you're having to practice or walk through, my email is kstevens@hcarockwall.org. Very easy to find, very approachable, very accessible during this time. I love you all. I'm so excited for all the stories that we're going to get to tell through this and how the Lord has used this quarantine just to further his kingdom. Okay, blessings.